Alrighty, I'm going to go on to the second part of your Chapter 3 practice test, and this is all about solving equations. You can see that we're working with equations now because there's an equal sign with an expression set equal to another expression. So there's actually something to solve for. So our go-to strategy is show that we have our two sides. This is x, and if you cover up your variable, you can see that this term is -5, and the inverse of -5 would be +5. So I'm going to add 5 to both sides of my equation to keep it balanced. -5 plus 5 is 0, so x is equal to 24. All right, you guys are doing a really good job with these problems here. Number 7, two sides. This says n divided by 4 equals -7. So here we're going to have to follow our integer rules for multiplying and dividing. So ask yourself what's happening to n. N is being divided by 4. So to undo that, or to reverse that, we're going to multiply both sides by 4. This is the same as saying 4 over 1. This is why we're able to cross cancel here and left with 1n. Now I have a -7 times 4. Negative times a positive leaves you with a -28. Okay. Number 8. And just so you know, I have these pre-worked out because there's no way I could do these so quickly, especially these decimal ones without a calculator. So I'm going to show that I have my two sides here. This says -0 and 2/10 n, or -0.2 n, equals -2.5. So what's happening to n? N is being multiplied by -0.2. So I'm going to divide n by -0.2. Don't forget that whatever the coefficient is, even if it's negative, that's what you're going to be working with. It's really easy to drop those negatives. -0.2 divided by -0.2 is 1, so you're left with your 1n. And this is when you'd go over to your calculator, and we know it's a negative divided by a negative. So if we're going to do that, you'd be covering your two negatives and it would leave you with that positive. So 2.5 divided by 0.2, you punch it in this direction, okay? This number divided by this number, and you get a positive 12.5. All right. We are at a two-step equation now. Okay, so when we talked about our thinking map, let me see if I can do this without it wobbling. Our order of operations tells us to work this way, but to undo an equation, we work this way. That one comes way later. So this is your first step here, and this is your second step here. So the first step is to add or subtract. You're trying to get everything away from this variable here. So I see that it says +5, so I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. 5 minus 5 is 0. -4 minus 5 is -9 equals m divided by 3. What's happening to m? M is being divided by 3. So now we're here at the second step. If m is being divided by 3, I have to multiply both sides by 3. And I have a positive times a negative, which is -27. -27 equals m. If you're wondering, I'm using a hot chocolate stand. Number 10 is also a equation that we have to solve for. Number 10. But this one's a little different. You always have to look at this side and this side and see if there's any simplifying you can do. And if you look here, this says 5x and this is a -6x. These are like terms, so they can be combined. If you have 5 x's and you take away 6 of them, that's going to leave you with -1x. And I'm just going to put that coefficient of -1. We don't have to write that. You will normally see it written like this. negative x. But for right now, I'm going to write it like this to show you that we're not quite done. We don't want negative 1x, we only want positive 1x. So you can ask yourself, what's happening to x? It's being multiplied by negative 1. So now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1, and x will end up equaling negative 4. Okay? Number 11. It's kind of big, so I have to hold this up a little bit. All right. Negative 1.5 equals 2y plus 3.1. Two sides. I'm going to add and subtract first. So I'm going to get this term away from my variable. Let's see if I can do this without my paper wobbling. I need an extra hand. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 3.1 from both sides. Sorry, it's a little sideways. 3.1 minus 3.1 is 0. Now I have negative 1.5 minus 3.1. If you look at your terms individually, those would be all red, these would be all red. So there's no 0 pairs. So everything is going to stay negative. Okay, so this is negative 1.5 plus a negative 3.1, which would be a negative 4.6 equals 2y. Okay, so now I'm going to divide both sides by 2. I know it's going to be a negative. Okay, and this is going to be a negative 2.3. All right, we're almost there. Number 12. Ooh, I see parentheses and I see a number outside the parentheses. So I have to use the distributive property. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times a negative 4. Negative times a negative is a positive 8 equals 6. I'm going to put my line in there. I forgot that part. Now I just have it worked out to a regular old two-step equation. Subtract 8, subtract 8. Negative 2x is equal to 6 minus 8 is negative 2. What's happening to x? It's being multiplied by negative 2, so I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. X is going to be equal to 1. Alrighty. The fraction one, everybody's favorite. Two sides. I'm going to follow all the same steps that I did right here. There's just fractions. All right, so I'm trying to get the variable alone, so I'm going to subtract 3/4 from both sides. 3/4 minus 3/4 is 0. That leaves me with 1/3 p equals. Okay, so now I have to have common denominators. Well, I have denominators of 2 and 4. I know 2 divides into 4, so I'm going to make this one have a denominator of 4 also. But this is a negative fraction, so I'm going to make sure I carry that negative over so I don't forget. I know that 2 times 2 is 4, so 1 times 2 is 2. So now I have a negative 2 and a negative 3, which together is negative 5, and then my denominator is 4. Now, this is that fractional coefficient, so we'd be dividing both sides by 1/3, but we divide fractions by multiplying by the reciprocal. These cross cancel. P is equal to, I have a negative times a positive, so it's a negative. 5 times 3 is 15. 4 times 1 is 4. And you can leave it just like that. All right, number 14 is the error analysis problem. And I think the best way of finding your errors is to work it out right next to it. Okay, so this is 5 times x minus 4 equals 24. I know that I have to distribute my 5s. So this is 5x minus 20 equals 24. And I think right here is where you find the first mistake. you can see that they did not distribute to the second term. So that's where they messed up, right at the beginning. Now I'm going to add 20 to both sides. They followed their process correctly by adding 4. It just wasn't the correct number here, okay? So I have 5x is equal to 44. Okay, divide by 5, divide by 5. X is equal to, and you want to make this a mixed number if you want. 5 can go into 44 8 times. Hang on. Because 8 times 5 is 40. Okay. I'm sure some of you have it as a decimal. When you punch this in, you would get 8.8. All right, but either answer is good. I hope this helps. Hopefully I didn't make any mistakes, and I'll see you tomorrow.